Hello, this is the RPG Crawler, and welcome to another Indie Game Friday, where each week I take a look at a different independent role-playing game. After a few weeks of covering near RPGs or things with strong RPG elements, I'm pleased to return to the realm of the true, full, old-school style RPG with Exiled Kingdoms. Developed and published by 4 Dimension Games, it was released on Steam on February 23, 2018, and currently lists at $7.99 US. When I saw this one come out on Steam, it looked vaguely familiar to me, and it soon became clear why. It's because Exiled Kingdoms was a mobile game. However, this mobile port has very few of the usual mobile port earmarks, as the developers have taken some time and some pains to actually make the game's interface feel more like a proper PC game. Oh, true, there are still some mobile interface elements in the game, and it can be played entirely with a mouse if you so wish, but I'll get into more of that later. Exiled Kingdoms is set in a fantasy world where, 100 years in the past, a great empire spanned the lands of Andoria. Unfortunately, a group of creatures called the Deep Lords opened up some gates through which the horrors came and put an end to the empire. Only a group of exiles fled the burning empire to set up colony kingdoms in a foreign land. The game starts with you, a young adventurer, receiving a letter telling of some mysterious inheritance from people that you don't know in a place you haven't been to, which you must then go to collect, and thus the adventure begins. Character creation is pretty straightforward. You select a gender, a name, and a portrait. You can pick a starting class from amongst the classic 4, warrior, rogue, cleric, and mage, as well as a starting skill. Abilities may be boosted from amongst strength, endurance, agility, intelligence, awareness, and personality, which vaguely match up to the classic 6 in terms of what they affect, although the abilities in this game are merely represented by ranks from 0 on up. As far as gameplay goes, Exiled Kingdoms is a real-time RPG which takes place on a group of open-world maps with an isometric view. Combat and exploration take place on the same maps as everything else, and each area links to other maps via entrances or at the edges of each map. Attacking an enemy is as easy as either clicking on them or pressing space if they are near within range. Interacting with objects or NPCs may be done by hitting tab while near them, or clicking on an icon at the top right side of the screen that appears when you're within range. This is a holdover from the game's mobile origins, but honestly it can still be useful, as there are times when you may be in range of several objects or NPCs, and may have to select which one to interact with. Combat is, as I mentioned, mostly a matter of aggroing enemies and clicking on them, which executes attacks with your equipped weapon. However, there are certain skills that you can gain through training as you level up, which may be used to perform special attacks or to do additional damage. Attack speed is regulated mostly by your weapon's speed, so while real-time, individual combats can soon become an exchange of blows that seem almost turn-based. This does, however, mean that you can easily be overwhelmed if you engage too many enemies at once. As you take damage, your hit points are reduced, but a few times per day, starting at 2, you can instantly recover all of your health using the Refresh ability. This is equivalent to stopping and taking a rest, and therefore cannot be done in combat. You regain these daily uses as well as any damage that you've taken by resting at an inn for 12 hours. You can rest for only 6, but it would only restore a portion of the daily uses and only a part of your health. After each enemy is defeated, and after learning certain portions of lore or finishing certain quests, you are awarded with game experience. Once you reach certain experience totals, you gain a level in the classic manner. Gaining a level grants a certain number of trait points and skill points which can be used to improve your base abilities and your skills. Boosting or buying new skills and abilities and boosting them to higher tiers requires increasingly more points, so it may be necessary to save up between levels in order to get them to what you wish. Outside of combat, during exploration, you may find and pick up certain items, speak with NPCs, or engage in commerce in towns. NPCs may provide information about the world at large, offer quests, or even allow you to hire them to accompany you. While you don't usually have direct control over these additional companions, they do generally follow you and may assist you in combat to the best of their abilities. consider them like henchmen or hirelings in a tabletop game. Items that you find in exploration, as well as monsters that you encounter, may be semi-randomized. That is to say that generally the initial layout of the enemies and the presence of certain items may be the same from play to play. However, after you clear them and then you rest, certain enemies and containers will respawn. While the enemies will be generally of the same sort, the contents of generally the same quality when regarding containers, the actual selection of enemies and contents may be slightly different each time. Although this means that returning from the dungeon to rest, then heading back into it again will result in your enemies refreshing themselves, it does allow for the accumulation of experience and treasure that may make future expeditions that much easier. And this is important because I've found that the dungeons, as presented, are actually relatively difficult, and may require multiple attempts to complete. The world itself is of decent size, especially considering the game's origin as a mobile game. And while interactions with NPCs may be relatively limited, their conversation options are of a reasonable length compared to other old-school style games that Exiled Kingdoms seems to want to mimic. One note is that the game is somewhat hardcore in terms of save slots. You can't save in dungeons unless you save and exit, and when you do save, either via quick save in the overworld or by resting at an inn, it all seems to save over the same slot, thus making progress sort of persistent. I do actually enjoy this method as it allows for a limited amount of saving before exploration while still providing a sense of permanency about certain actions. Graphically, Exiled Kingdoms reminds me of the 2D isometric games from the late 90s and early 2000s, without being the kind of low-res pixel style that seems to be so popular of late. The music seems to be mostly ambient classical, enough to fill the void, but nothing really memorable. Likewise, the sound effects are workable, giving ample feedback. All in all, if you don't like the old-school style isometric aesthetic, this game won't really win you over. But it does that style quite solidly, so if you can bear it, or if you even enjoy that kind of graphics, then it will be relatively easy to interact with. I was pretty impressed with the game overall, and though it does lack some of the more complex interactions of more modern RPGs, it is still relatively deep, especially considering its origins as a mobile port. In fact, the existence of that mobile port is of benefit, either for those who enjoy RPGs on the go and would like to pick up the mobile port instead, or those who wish to see exactly what can be found in the game before starting, because it's already been around long enough that the community around the mobile version has created a full wiki after all. All in all, I do recommend this game, especially if you like old-school style RPGs. And I will leave it at that. The link will be in the description below as always. This has been the RPG Crawler with Indie Game Friday Exiled Kingdoms. If you like what you've seen, remember to leave a like, comment if you got any feedback, and subscribe for more RPG content, both tabletop and computer. If you're feeling particularly generous, I do have a Patreon at patreon.com/rpgcrawler, the proceeds of which go to support the channel. Until next time, take care and goodbye.